most betrays you in the worst possible way. I lived through that moment, and what happened next changed everything. My name is Raymond Jensen, and I'm 37 years old. I came home early from a security job overseas and found my wife Angela in bed with another man, a cocky personal trainer named Damian Whitmore. That discovery lit a fuse inside me, transforming me from a trusting husband into someone who would stop at nothing to ensure justice was served. What followed was calculated legal destruction, personal confrontation, and consequences neither of them saw coming. Damian made one critical mistake that afternoon. He pulled a gun on a former Navy SEAL. That single act of stupidity handed me everything I needed to dismantle both their lives piece by piece. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, if you've ever wanted to watch the people who hurt you face real consequences, then you'll understand exactly why I did what I did. Sometimes justice and revenge are the same thing. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. I'd been traveling for work for 15 years, building my security consulting business from the ground up after I left the Navy. 37 years old, and I'd protected corporate executives in 12 countries, negotiated with warlords, trained security teams in hostile environments. I was good at what I did. The money showed it. Nice house in a quiet neighborhood outside Dallas. 2 cars. Comfortable life for me and Angela. 3 days early. That's all it took. I finished the job in Somalia ahead of schedule and caught an earlier flight home. Walked through my front door at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Gym bag over my shoulder. Already thinking about a hot shower in my own bed. The bedroom door was closed. That struck me as odd. Angela never closed it during the day. I pushed it open. My wife was naked in bed with another man. Angela screamed. The guy, tall, maybe early 30s, designer clothes scattered across my floor, jumped up like he'd been electrocuted. I stood in the doorway, gym bag still in my hand, and felt that old familiar calm settle over me. The same calm I'd felt in Fallujah, in Yemen, in a dozen other places where staying cool meant staying alive. "Who the hell are you?" the guy demanded, puffing his chest out like some kind of rooster. I set my bag down carefully. "I'm the husband, Raymond Jensen. And you're in my house, in my bed." Angela clutched the sheet to her chest, face pale as paper. "Raymond, this isn't—" "Get dressed," I said evenly. "Both of you. Then we're going to have a conversation." The guy grabbed his pants off the floor. "You don't tell me what to do. Angela wants this. She's been miserable with you, man. Miserable." "That so?" I took one step into the room. "Then why's she been signing her name on my bank accounts? Why's she living in my house, driving the car I bought her?" He reached into his pants pocket. When his hand came back out, he was holding a Glock 19. "Back off," he said, pointing it at me with shaking hands. "I'm not playing around here. You need to leave. Now." I started laughing. Couldn't help it. The sound came out cold and hard. Nothing funny about it at all. "You're pointing a gun at me?" I took another step forward. "You think that scares me?" "I'll use it." His voice cracked. "I'm serious, man. Just walk away and nobody gets hurt." "Raymond, stop," Angela shouted from the bed. "Please, both of you, just stop." But I was done stopping. My tactical brain had already cataloged everything about him. Stance wrong, grip too loose, finger on the trigger but hands shaking like leaves. He'd never fired at a living person before. Probably never fired at anything but paper targets, if that. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, closing the distance to 6 feet. "You're going to lower that weapon. Then you're going to get the hell out of my house. And if you ever come near my wife again, if you ever even think about her, I will make your life a living nightmare. Do you understand me?" His hand wavered. "I'll shoot. I swear I'll—" I moved. 3 years of close-quarters combat training. Thousands of hours of muscle memory. I had the gun out of his hand and his face pressed against the wall before his brain registered what happened. The Glock was in my hand now, magazine ejected, round cleared from the chamber. "This is mine now," I said calmly, holding the pieces. "Evidence. You just committed aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. In Texas, that's a second-degree felony. 2 to 20 years. I released him and stepped back. He stumbled, gasping, staring at me like he'd just seen a ghost. What What are you? I'm someone you should never have pulled a gun on. He grabbed his clothes and ran. Literally ran down the stairs and out the front door in his underwear, still trying to process what just happened. I heard his car peel out of my driveway seconds later. Angela stood frozen by the bed, sheet clutched to her chest. Raymond, please, let me explain. How long? What? How? Long? She flinched. 6 months. Where'd you meet him? The gym. He's a personal trainer there. Raymond, you're never here, you're always traveling, and I was lonely. So you brought him into our house. Into our bed. The anger was rising now, hot and sharp behind my ribs. You want to know what I did this week, Angela? I negotiated with Somali pirates for a hostage release. I saved a man's life, and you? You were here screwing some punk with a gun he doesn't know how to use. It just happened. Nothing just happens. My voice cracked like a whip, and she actually stepped back. You made choices. You chose to betray our marriage. You chose to disrespect our home, and he chose to point a weapon at me. So now? Now you both get to live with those choices. What does that mean? I picked up my phone. It means I'm calling my lawyer. It means every text message, every photo, every credit card charge you've made in the last 6 months is getting subpoenaed. It means that gun? That's assault evidence going to the police, and it means you're going to find out exactly how ruthless I can be when someone takes what's mine. Her face crumbled. I'm not a thing you own. No, you're my wife, or you were. But this house, the cars, the bank accounts, those are mine. Earned with my blood and my work, and by the time I'm done, you won't have access to any of it. I walked out of the bedroom, gun parts still in my hand, and went downstairs to my office. First call went to Steve Harrison, the former JAG officer who'd helped me incorporate my business years ago. Steve, I need you. Now. Divorce papers, restraining order, the works. Second call went to the police non-emergency line. I reported the assault, gave them the gun serial number, explained what happened in calm, factual terms. Third call went to Clark Anderson, my company's investigator, former CIA analyst who specialized in digital forensics. Clark, I need everything. Phone records, messages, social media, financial transactions. My wife and a guy named Damian Whitmore. I need to know every time they met, every place they went, every dollar she spent on him. Damn, Ray, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just be thorough. Within 2 hours, I had a police report filed, a restraining order application in process, and Steve had drafted separation papers. Angela stayed in the bedroom crying. I didn't care. She'd made her choice. Now she'd live with it. I sat in my office, the dismantled Glock on my desk, and felt that cold certainty of mission focus settle over me. Angela and Damian had declared war on me. They just didn't know who they were fighting. The police showed up just after 6 that evening. 2 officers, one younger guy who looked fresh out of the academy, and an older man with gray at his temples and the kind of bearing that told me everything I needed to know before he even opened his mouth. Mr. Jensen, I'm Officer Marcus Brennan. This is Officer Lewis. We're here about the assault report you filed. I invited them in and we sat in my living room. The younger one, Lewis, took notes while Brennan asked the questions. I walked them through it step by step. Coming home early. Finding Angela and Damian in my bed. The confrontation. The gun. Brennan leaned forward when I described how Damian had held the Glock. Finger on the trigger? Yeah. Shaking hands, wrong stance, loose grip. Guys never fired at a living person. Probably never fired at anything but paper targets, if that. Brennan nodded slowly. You served? Navy SEAL. 2 deployments, Iraq and Yemen. Marines myself. Fallujah or 04. He glanced at his partner, then back at me. You did the right thing, disarming him. Could have gone bad fast with an untrained civilian waving a loaded weapon around. I know. We'll pick him up for questioning, Brennan said. Get his statement, compare it to yours. You still have the weapon? I handed over the Glock in an evidence bag I'd prepared. Brennan examined it, checked the serial number against his notes. This'll help. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. After they left, I felt the first real satisfaction I'd had since walking into that bedroom. Damian was about to get a visit from police, and he'd have to explain why he pulled a gun on a man in his own home. Then Steve called. Raymond, we need to talk about the assault charge. What about it? Angela is refusing to give a statement against Damien. She's protecting him. I felt my jaw tighten. Of course she is. Texas takes this seriously, but Damien can claim he was defending himself in another man's home. Without Angela's cooperation, it complicates things. We need more to make it stick. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about divorce. Angela had chosen Damien over me, over our marriage, over basic decency. She was going to fight me. Then we go nuclear, I said. Community property state, right? I want a full accounting of every asset, and I want her out of the house. I can file for exclusive occupancy, but Raymond, if she fights this, it's going to get ugly. Good. Let it get ugly. I'm done playing nice. The next morning, Angela finally came downstairs. She'd been crying all night. Her eyes were red and swollen, mascara streaked down her cheeks. But there was something else in her face now. Defiance. I talked to a lawyer, she said. I looked up from my coffee. That's so? You can't just kick me out, this is my house too. Your lawyer tell you about adultery clauses? That's not, we have no fault divorce in Texas. But we have fault-based property division. Your affair? That's grounds for a disproportionate split in my favor, especially when your boyfriend pulled a gun on me in our home. She slammed her hand on the counter. Stop calling him my boyfriend. It was a mistake, Raymond. A stupid mistake, and if you'd just been here more. I stood up. She backed away immediately. Don't. My voice was quiet, controlled. Don't you dare make this my fault. I worked my ass off to give us this life. You want to be lonely? Fine. Divorce me. But you don't get to betray me and then blame me for it. I want half of everything. Then you're going to have to fight for it. Because I'm not giving you a damn thing. She grabbed her purse. I'm going to stay with my sister. Diane will understand even if you don't. Good. That'll make the exclusive occupancy order easier. She left, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall and shattered on the floor. That afternoon, Clark called. Ray, you're going to want to sit down for this. Just tell me. Your wife spent over $40,000 in the last 6 months. Cash withdrawals, luxury purchases, hotel rooms. She's been taking Damien on weekend trips while you were overseas. Vegas, Miami, Scottsdale, all on your credit cards. $40,000, my money, funding her affair. There's more, Clark continued. Text messages show she's been planning to divorce you anyway. She and Damien were talking about moving in together, starting a life. She was just waiting for the right time to maximize her settlement. Send me everything. Already encrypted and on its way. I spent that night reading through the messages. Every I love you she'd sent Damien. Every complaint about me being gone, about me being cold and distant. Every plan they'd made for their future together. And then I found the one that changed everything. Raymond won't see it coming. He trusts me completely. Once the divorce is final, we'll have enough to open your gym. Maybe even 2 locations. He's got way more money than he knows what to do with. We just have to play this smart. She wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to rob me. I called Steve immediately. I need you to file for divorce tomorrow. Adultery and fraud. I want forensic accountants. I want depositions. And I want her to understand that she just made the worst mistake of her life. I'll have the papers ready by morning. One more thing. That gun Damien pulled, I want the DA to prosecute to the fullest extent. No plea deals. I want him in court facing real time. I'll make some calls. I sat in my home office, the house silent around me, and felt that mission focus lock into place. Angela and Damien thought they could take what was mine. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. 3 days after I filed for divorce, Steve personally delivered the papers to Diane's house. Within an hour, my phone started blowing up. Calls, texts, voicemails. All Angela, all hysterical. I ignored every single one. I had more important work to do. Clark called me that afternoon with his deeper analysis. Ray, it gets worse. Tell me. Angela opened a secret credit card, used your joint income to qualify. She's racked up another $20,000 in charges. My jaw tightened. On what? Jewelry for Damien. Designer watches. Gold chains. And a down payment on a commercial lease, the gym they were planning to open together. $20,000. On top of the $40,000 I already knew about. Every transaction is documented, Clark continued. Every purchase, every withdrawal. She left a paper trail a mile wide. Send it all to Steve. Already done. I spent the next week going through everything Clark sent. Bank statements, credit reports, receipts, text messages planning purchases, celebrating small victories, counting down days until they'd be free. Free. Like our marriage was a prison sentence she was serving. I documented it all. Built spreadsheets, created timelines. You know what they taught us in the SEALs? Preparation wins battles. And this was war. The police investigation moved forward faster than I expected. The district attorney handling Damien's case was a woman named Mary Ann Taylor. Steve knew her from his JAG days. She'd built her entire career prosecuting domestic violence and weapons crimes. She's tough, Steve told me over the phone. Made a name for herself going after abusers who thought they'd get away with it. She doesn't negotiate when she's got a strong case. How strong is our case? Rock solid. Damien pulled a loaded weapon on you in your own home. Texas takes that very seriously. 2 days later, formal charges were filed. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Damien hired himself a lawyer, some slick defense attorney named Todd Parker, who wore expensive suits and immediately started spinning stories to the press about misunderstandings and mutual combat. Steve shut that down in their first pretrial conference. I wasn't there, but Steve told me about it later. Parker tried to claim you were the aggressor, said Damien was defending himself in a volatile situation. What did you say? I told him my client is a decorated veteran with no criminal record who came home to find a stranger in his bed. I told him his client pointed a loaded weapon at a trained Navy SEAL in the SEAL's own home. I told him there's no mutual combat when one person is naked and the other person just walked through his own front door. I smiled. How'd he take that? Not well. He tried to pivot, started talking about reasonable fear, but Mary Ann cut him off. Told him flat out she's not offering any plea deals. Damien's going to trial. The restraining order went through without a fight, 500 feet. Damien couldn't come near me or my property. Not that it stopped Angela. 2 weeks after the divorce papers were served, my security system chimed. I pulled up the camera feed and there she was, standing on my porch, looking like hell. She'd lost weight. Her clothes hung loose. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She rang the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times. I watched her for a full minute before I walked to the door. Opened it, but kept the chain lock on. Raymond, please, she said immediately. We need to talk. Talk to my lawyer. I made a mistake, I know that now. Damien, he's not who I thought he was. He's angry all the time, he's been threatening me. Not my problem. Her face twisted. How can you be so cold? We were married for 8 years. And you threw it away for a personal trainer with a gun and a dream. Congratulations, Angela. You chose him. Now live with that choice. He told me you'd never find out. Her voice cracked. He said we'd be careful, and then when it was over I could divorce you quietly and everything would be fine. I started laughing. That same cold laugh from the bedroom, from every confrontation since. You really thought you'd get away with it? I leaned closer to the gap in the door. Angela, I've tracked terrorists through 3 countries. I found insurgents hiding in caves. You think I couldn't figure out my own wife was having an affair? She looked shocked. Actually shocked. You knew? I suspected. Had a feeling something was off, but I wanted to be wrong. I let that sink in. Turns out I was right. And now you're going to pay for it. Both of you. Raymond, I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry Damien turned out to be a violent idiot who pulled a gun on the wrong person. But you're not sorry for what you did. You're not sorry for betraying me, for stealing from me, for planning to rob me blind. Tears ran down her face. Please. That's why I'm taking everything, Angela. Because you're not actually sorry. You just don't like the consequences. I closed the door in her face. Through the security camera, I watched her stand there for another 3 minutes crying. Then she walked back to her car, a beat-up sedan she must have borrowed from Diane, and drove away. I went back to my office and pulled up the latest evidence files Clark had sent. Cold satisfaction settled in my chest as I reviewed every document, Every transaction, every lie. They thought they were smart. They thought they'd planned it perfectly. They had no idea what was coming. 3 months into the divorce proceedings, the forensic accountants delivered their final report. $64,000. That's what Angela had spent on her affair with Damien. Every dollar documented, traced, verified. Steve filed a motion for reimbursement the same day. We're arguing she violated her fiduciary duty to the marital estate. She wasted community assets on her paramour. The case law in Texas is solid. Good. The divorce hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks after Damien's trial. Judge McKinley wants to see how the criminal case shakes out before she rules on property division. Made sense. A guilty verdict would make Steve's job easier, and Damien was going to be found guilty. The trial started on a Tuesday morning in late September. Damien sat at the defense table in a cheap suit, looking smaller than I remembered. Todd Parker whispered in his ear constantly. I sat in the gallery with Steve, watching Marianne Taylor organize her files at the prosecution table. She'd tried one last time to get Todd to take a plea. I'd been there for the pretrial conference. Your client can plead to assault, Marianne had said. 3 years, out in 18 months with good behavior. Todd shook his head. That's not reasonable. This was a misunderstanding that got out of hand. Your client pointed a loaded Glock at a decorated veteran in the veteran's own home. In Texas, Mr. Parker, we take the Second Amendment seriously. We also take gun crimes seriously. Your client chose to pull a weapon. Now he faces the consequences. My client was defending himself. From what? A man walking into his own bedroom? No. This is going to trial. And here we were. I testified first. Marianne walked me through everything. Coming home early, finding Angela and Damien in bed, the confrontation, the gun. Mr. Jensen, when Mr. Whitmore pointed the weapon at you, did you feel threatened? I kept my voice steady, military precise. No, ma'am. Why not? I've been threatened by actual professionals, insurgents in Fallujah, pirates off the Somali coast. Damien Whitmore was scared, angry, and incompetent with that firearm. His stance was wrong. His grip was loose. His hands were shaking. He'd never pointed a gun at a living person before, and it showed. But he did point the gun at you? Yes, ma'am. Loaded weapon. Finger on the trigger. Barrel aimed at my chest. And the law doesn't require the person to be competent with a firearm for it to be assault, does it? No, ma'am. Pointing a loaded weapon at someone is assault. Doesn't matter if you know what you're doing or not. Todd Parker tried on cross-examination. Tried to paint me as the aggressor. Tried to suggest I'd threatened Damien first. The jury didn't buy it. I could see it in their faces. When Damien took the stand, he fell apart. Marianne was surgical. Mr. Whitmore, you were having an affair with the defendant's wife, correct? Yes. His voice was barely audible. And when Mr. Jensen came home and found you in his bed, how did you feel? Angry. Scared. So you pulled a gun on him? I just wanted him to back off. You just wanted him to back off. So you retrieved a loaded Glock from your pants pocket and pointed it at him? Yes. Did you consider leaving? Walking out of the house? Damien hesitated. He was blocking the door. Marianne pounced. Mr. Jensen testified he was 6 feet away from you. That's hardly blocking the door, is it? I don't know, it felt like you felt scared, so you pulled a gun. Is that your testimony? Yes. And you pointed that gun at Mr. Jensen's chest? Yes. Did you intend to shoot him if he didn't back off? Damien's lawyer objected. Judge Thornton sustained it. But the damage was done. The jury saw exactly what I'd seen that day. A coward who pulled a weapon he didn't know how to use and made a catastrophic mistake. 90 minutes. That's how long the jury deliberated. When they came back, the foreman read the verdict. We find the defendant, Damien Whitmore, guilty of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Angela sobbed in the gallery. Damien's face went white. Sentencing was set for 2 months later. Recommended sentence, 5 years. The divorce hearing came next. Jeffrey Roberts stood up in Judge McKinley's courtroom looking like a man who knew he was outgunned. He tried anyway. Argued for 50-50 split. Claimed Angela deserved half because Texas was a community property state. Steve demolished him. Bank statements, credit card records, text messages where Angela and Damien planned to take my money and open his gym. My testimony about the affair, the theft, the betrayal. Judge McKinley listened to everything. Then she ruled. Mrs. Jensen, you wasted significant community assets on an extramarital affair. You planned to defraud your husband of his property, and your paramour committed a violent felony in the marital home. Angela was crying. Jeffrey tried to object. Judge McKinley talked right over him. I'm awarding Mr. Jensen 90% of the community property, sole ownership of the marital home, and I'm ordering you, Mrs. Jensen, to reimburse him for the wasted assets. Your Honor, Jeffrey started. Your client made her choices, Mr. Roberts. Now she lives with the consequences. Angela got a 1999 Toyota and enough cash to rent a cheap apartment. That was it. Everything else was mine. I walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. Everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, it was still mine. Steve clapped me on the shoulder. That's about as complete a victory as I've ever seen, Ray. It's not done yet. What do you mean? Damien's sentencing is in 6 weeks. I looked back at the courthouse. I'm giving a victim impact statement, and I'm going to make sure he gets every year he deserves. The counterattack. 2 weeks before Damien's sentencing, my phone rang at 11 at night. Clark. His voice was tight. Ray, we have a problem. I sat up in bed. What kind of problem? Angela's been posting on social media, cryptic stuff about justice and the truth coming out, but that's not the real issue. He paused. She hired a new lawyer, Nicholas Green, hotshot from Dallas who specializes in overturning criminal convictions. My chest tightened. And? Green filed a motion to vacate Damien's guilty verdict. Claims jury misconduct and ineffective assistance of counsel. Can he do that? If he finds legitimate grounds? Yeah. A judge could grant a new trial. Clark's voice dropped. Ray, there's more. Angela filed a police report. She's claiming you threatened her. Says you told her you'd destroy her and she's been afraid for her life. That's bullshit. I know. But if Green creates enough smoke, enough doubt, he might convince a judge to grant that new trial. And if Damien walks, he let that hang. The optics on your divorce case change. Angela's lawyer is already talking about appealing the property division. I felt something I hadn't felt since this started. Control slipping. What do? We fight, Clark said. But Ray, this is going to get worse before it gets better. He was right. Nicholas Green was good. Better than good. Within a week, he'd found a juror who admitted to Googling my name during deliberations. Direct violation of the judge's instructions. Green filed motions, held press conferences, and suddenly, the narrative shifted. Damien wasn't a violent criminal anymore. He was a victim. Victim of an overreaching prosecution. Victim of a vindictive ex-husband. The media ate it up. Local news ran stories. Decorated veteran accused of intimidation. Was justice served? Convicted man fights back. Then Angela went on camera. I watched the segment at my office, jaw clenched. She sat there, tears streaming down her face, looking fragile and broken. I'm just scared, she told the reporter. Raymond, he's not the man I thought I married. He told me he'd destroy me. And he has. I've lost everything. My home, my reputation. And now he wants to make sure Damien goes to prison for something that was just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? The reporter prompted. Damien never meant to hurt anyone. He was just scared. We both were. Raymond can be intimidating. He knows how to manipulate people, how to make himself look like the victim when really... Her voice broke. Really? I'm the one who's been living in fear. I turned off the screen. Character assassination. That's what this was, and it was working. The appeals court agreed to hear Damien's motion. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters wanting interviews. Old Navy buddies calling to check if I was okay. Business partners expressing concern about the negative publicity. Steve tried to stay positive. This is desperation, Ray. Green's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. The conviction will hold. But I heard the doubt in his voice. Damien's sentencing hearing was postponed, pending the appeal. Jeffrey Roberts filed a motion to reopen the property division. New circumstances, he called it. I sat in my home office that night, staring at the Glock I'd taken from Damien. Empty, harmless, still logged as evidence but returned to me after the trial. A reminder of how this started, how close I'd come to a very different ending. What if Green succeeded? What if Damien walked? What if Angela got her appeal? For the first time in months, I felt genuine doubt. Not about what I'd done, I'd do it all again, but about whether they'd actually face the consequences they deserved. The evidence I'm not a man who gives up. Not in combat. Not in business. And sure as hell not when two people who betrayed me tried to rewrite history. I called Clark first thing the next morning. I need you to dig deeper. Everything on Nicholas Green. Everything on Angela's new claims. If they're lying, and they are, I need proof. Already on it, Clark said. Then I called Marianne Taylor. The conviction will hold, right? She didn't answer immediately. That silence told me everything. The juror misconduct is concerning, she finally said. But we have strong grounds to argue harmless error. The evidence against Damien was overwhelming. One juror Googling your name doesn't change the fundamental facts. He pulled a gun on you in your own home. That happened. So we're good? We're solid. But Ray, if you can get me anything showing Angela and Damien coordinated this appeal together, that would strengthen our position significantly. Proof they're manipulating the system. I'll see what I can do. 3 days later, Clark called. Ray, you're going to love this. He sent me encrypted screenshots, messages between Angela and Nicholas Green. Communications she'd sent from Diane's computer, not realizing Clark had already gained access to her sister's network during the original investigation. The messages showed everything. Strategy discussions, which narrative to frame, which reporters to contact, how to make me look like the villain. But the most damning part? Messages between Angela and Damien planning this exact defense. Months before the trial even ended. They knew he'd be convicted, Clark explained. This was always their backup plan. Get convicted, claim misconduct, use the publicity to pressure you into settling. My hands tightened on the phone. Can we use this? Already sent it to Steve and Marianne. It's gold, Ray. Absolute gold. Steve filed an emergency motion with the appeals court within hours. Attached the messages as exhibits. Fraud upon the court, he called it. Marianne did the same in the criminal case. The appeals hearing was set for 2 weeks later. Same judge, Barbara McKinley, the woman who'd already ruled on my divorce. I sat in the gallery with Steve, watching Nicholas Green work. He was good. I'd give him that. Eloquent arguments about jury misconduct, tainted proceedings, constitutional rights violated. The kind of performance that might have worked, if he'd been dealing with anyone else. Then Steve stood up. Your Honor, he said, addressing Judge McKinley directly. Opposing counsel has engaged in calculated fraud. Green started to object, but McKinley raised her hand. I'm presenting evidence, Steve continued, that Mr. Whitmore and Ms. Hubert, she's reverted to her maiden name, coordinated this entire appeal as a strategy to avoid consequences for Mr. Whitmore's crimes. He walked forward, handed the printed messages to Judge McKinley. She read them, one page, then another, then another. Her expression darkened with every line. Finally, she looked up. Mr. Green, she said slowly, did you know about these communications? Green's face went pale. Your Honor, those were privileged. These are evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud upon this court. Her voice cut like steel. Bailiff, I want both Ms. Hubert and Mr. Whitmore detained pending contempt proceedings. The courtroom exploded. Angela screamed from the gallery, high-pitched, desperate. No, you can't, this isn't. Damien jumped up from where he'd been sitting with his lawyer, tried to run. Court security tackled him before he made it 3 steps. Judge McKinley banged her gavel, 3 hard strikes. Order! The chaos settled. Barely. Motion denied, she said. The conviction stands. Furthermore, I'm referring Mr. Green to the State Bar for investigation of his conduct. She turned her gaze to where security now held both Angela and Damien. And I'm ordering both Ms. Hubert and Mr. Whitmore to show cause why they shouldn't be held in contempt. I watched their plan collapse in real time. Angela sobbing as the bailiff approached her. Damien on the floor, security holding him down. Nicholas Green standing at his table, face white, career crumbling around him. And me? I felt that cold satisfaction settle in my chest. The same feeling I got when a mission went exactly according to plan. They'd tried to manipulate the system, tried to make me the villain. Now they'd answer for it. The sentencing. 2 months after Judge McKinley's ruling, I sat in a different courtroom watching Damien Whitmore stand before a different judge. Judge Arthur Brennan, silver-haired 60-something with the kind of face that had seen every excuse and heard every lie. He reviewed the case file slowly. The guilty verdict, the failed appeal, the fraud, the contempt proceedings. Marianne Taylor stood to argue for sentencing. "Your Honor," she said, her voice carrying that prosecutor's edge I'd come to appreciate. Mr. Whitmore didn't just commit aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He pointed a loaded gun at a decorated veteran in that veteran's own home. But that wasn't enough for him. She walked toward the bench. After his conviction, Mr. Whitmore coordinated with his lover and a corrupt attorney to fabricate grounds for appeal. He lied. He manipulated. He attempted to corrupt this court system to avoid accountability for his actions. This man has shown zero remorse, zero respect for the law. And he deserves an enhanced sentence that reflects both crimes, the assault and the fraud. Judge Brennan nodded slowly. "Mr. Jensen, I understand you wish to make a victim impact statement?" I stood. My hands were steady. "Yes, Your Honor." "Proceed." I looked at Damien. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "That day," I said, "Damien Whitmore pulled a loaded gun on me in my bedroom. I was unarmed. I just walked into my own house and found him with my wife. And his response, point a weapon at me, threaten my life." I paused. Let that sink in. I'm a former Navy SEAL. I've been in combat. I know what it looks like when someone's actually dangerous versus when they're just stupid and scared. Damien was both. And that combination, that could have resulted in tragedy. He could have pulled that trigger by accident. Could have killed me. Could have killed himself. Could have killed my wife. Judge Brennan was listening. Really listening. "But what happened after?" I continued. "That's what tells you who this man really is. He got convicted, fair trial, solid evidence, and instead of accepting responsibility, instead of showing 1 ounce of remorse, he conspired with my ex-wife and a lawyer to lie to this court, to fabricate a story, to try to make me the villain." My voice hardened. "That shows a complete lack of character, a complete disrespect for the law. And it shows he'll do anything, lie, cheat, manipulate, to avoid facing consequences for his actions. He deserves every year you can give him, Your Honor." I sat down. Judge Brennan looked at Damien for a long moment. "Mr. Whitmore, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence?" Damien stood. His lawyer, a public defender this time since Todd Parker had dropped him, put a hand on his shoulder. Damien's voice cracked. "I made mistakes. I'm sorry." "Sorry you got caught," Judge Brennan said flatly. "Sorry your scheme failed, but not sorry for what you did. I've read the evidence, Mr. Whitmore. I've read the messages. You planned the fraud months in advance." He opened the sentencing file. "I'm sentencing you to 7 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, 2 years more than the recommendation. The enhancement is specifically for your attempt to corrupt the judicial process. That kind of behavior cannot and will not be tolerated." He banged the gavel. "Bailiff, remand the defendant to custody." Damien's face went white. 7 years? But immediately, Judge Brennan repeated. 2 officers moved forward. Handcuffed Damien right there at the defense table. I looked at the gallery. Angela sat 3 rows back, her face pale and drawn, thinner than I'd ever seen her. She watched them lead Damien away, and something in her expression crumbled. Good. That same week, Angela had her own date with Judge McKinley. Contempt hearing. Steve and I sat in the front row while Angela stood before the bench with whatever cut-rate lawyer she'd scraped together. Judge McKinley didn't waste time. Ms. Hubert, you coordinated with Mr. Green and Mr. Whitmore to fabricate grounds for appeal. You filed a false police report claiming Mr. Jensen threatened you. You violated the restraining order. Do you dispute any of these facts? Angela's voice was barely a whisper. No, Your Honor. Then here's your sentence. $15,000 in fines. And you'll pay Mr. Jensen's legal fees related to defending against your fraudulent appeal. That's an additional $30,000. Angela swayed. Her lawyer caught her arm. Your Honor, my client doesn't have... Then she'll work out a payment plan. But she will pay. Judge McKinley's eyes were ice. You wasted this court's time, Ms. Hubert. You lied under oath. You attempted to pervert justice. Consider yourself fortunate I'm not referring you for criminal prosecution. Nicholas Green got his reckoning too. State Bar suspended his license pending a full disciplinary hearing. Last I heard, they were talking permanent disbarment. The day after Damien's sentencing, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Raymond? Angela's voice, broken, small. What do you want? I wanted to say I'm sorry, really sorry, for all of it. I laughed. That same cold laugh from the bedroom. Months ago. A lifetime ago. Now you're sorry? After you tried to destroy me? After the false accusations? After the fraudulent appeal? I didn't know what else to do. Her voice cracked. I lost everything, Raymond. My marriage, my home, my reputation. Damien's in prison. I'm working 2 jobs just to make rent. Good. Silence. You made every single choice that led to this, I said. Each word precise. You chose to cheat. You chose to steal from me. You chose to stand by Damien after he pulled a gun on me. You chose to try to make me the villain. So no, Angela, I don't feel bad for you. You're getting exactly what you deserve. I loved you once, she whispered. No. You loved what I could give you. The house. The money. The lifestyle. But you never loved me. Because if you had, none of this would have happened. I hung up. The phone rang again, almost immediately. Steve. Heard you talk to Angela. Last time. Good, because I've got news. Jeffrey Roberts is suing her. Unpaid legal fees. I couldn't help it. I smiled. And there's more. Steve continued. Diane kicked her out. Apparently Angela stole from her too. Some people never learned. 6 months after Damien's sentencing, I sold the house. Couldn't walk through those rooms anymore without seeing it. The bedroom. Angela's face when I opened that door. Damien scrambling for his gun. I didn't want a fresh start carrying that weight. So I bought a place in the hill country outside Austin. Smaller property. 40 acres. Enough land that my nearest neighbor was a quarter mile away. The views reminded me why I fell in love with Texas in the first place. Rolling hills, live oaks older than the state itself, sunsets that painted the sky orange and purple and gold. Standing on that deck the first time, feeling the breeze come up from the valley, I thought, yeah, this is home. The business took off after everything went public. You'd think the negative press would have hurt. Nicholas Green and Angela tried their best to paint me as some vindictive ex-husband abusing the legal system. But most people saw through it. Turns out potential clients were impressed. Not by the divorce itself, nobody wants that drama, but by how I handled it. Systematically, legally, ruthlessly sure, but always within the boundaries. 3 Fortune 500 companies reached out within a month. Executive protection. Security consulting. One CEO told me straight, if you can dismantle 2 people trying to destroy you while staying completely legal, I want you protecting my team. Revenue doubled within 6 months of the divorce finalization. Clark called it the silver lining. I called it karma. Dating again felt strange. I approached it carefully. Trust didn't come easy anymore. Couldn't just take someone at their word. But I met Leslie Robinson at a VA fundraiser. Physician's assistant. Worked with veterans every day. She understood the military mindset, the sacrifices, the way some of us compartmentalize things civilians never could. We took it slow. Coffee first, then dinner, then weekend hikes in the hill country where I could show her the new property. She didn't push, didn't ask about Angela unless I brought it up. Respected boundaries. One evening, sitting on my deck watching the sunset, she asked, "You ever gonna tell me the whole story?" "Which part?" "All of it. The stuff the news didn't cover." So I did. Told her everything. The bedroom, the gun, the trials, the fraudulent appeal. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You're not a victim," she finally said. "That's what I respect most. You didn't let them make you one." For the first time since finding Angela in bed with Damien, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could trust someone again. Clark kept tabs on Damien and Angela. Habit, mostly. Professional curiosity. "Damien's not doing well," he told me one afternoon. "Prison's rough when the other inmates find out you pulled a gun on a veteran. Protective custody. Twice already. Incidents in general population. Word gets around fast." I didn't feel bad for him. Not even a little. Angela's life collapsed completely. She dropped my last name. Back to Hubert now. Worked as a receptionist at some dental office on the east side. Lived in a studio apartment that probably cost more than she could afford. Diane wouldn't speak to her. Not after the theft. Angela's friends, the ones who used to come over for wine nights and book clubs, they all disappeared. Nobody wanted to associate with someone convicted of contempt, someone the news had exposed as a liar and a fraud. Every month, like clockwork, I got a payment. Court-ordered reimbursement for the $45,000 she owed in legal fees, usually around $200, sometimes less. I'd never see the full amount. She barely made enough to survive, let alone pay off that kind of debt. But I didn't care about the money. Every first of the month when that payment hit my account, Angela had to think about me, about her choices, about how drastically different her life could have been if she'd just stayed faithful. That was worth more than $45,000. Nicholas Green got disbarred. Formal hearing. State Bar wasn't messing around. His attempt to manipulate the courts cost him everything. Clark sent me an update a few months back. Green's working out of a strip mall now. Legal consultant. Helps people file small claims. From hotshot Dallas attorney to strip mall consultant. Another kind of justice. I stood on the deck of my hill country home that evening, watching the sun drop below the horizon. Sky turning from blue to orange to deep purple. The air smelled like cedar and wildflowers. No bad memories here. No ghosts. Just land and sky and the life I'd built entirely on my own terms. Justice had been served. Real justice. The kind where people who do wrong face real consequences. And me? I was at peace. For the first time in over a year, genuinely at peace. A year. 1 full year since I walked into that bedroom and found Angela with Damien. Feels like a lifetime ago. Like it happened to someone else. The man I was that day, the guy who still believed marriage vows meant something, who trusted his wife completely, who thought loyalty was reciprocal, that Raymond doesn't exist anymore. The man I became? Harder, more careful, significantly wiser about human nature and what people are capable of when they want something badly enough. But here's the thing. I'm also better off. In every single measurable way. My business is thriving beyond anything I achieved while married to Angela. Those Fortune 500 contracts, they keep coming, and clients tell me the same thing over and over. "We trust you because of how you handled your situation, methodically, legally, with absolute determination." They respect that I didn't lose control, that I fought smart instead of fighting dirty. Revenue's up 40% from last year. I'm hiring 2 new consultants next month. Clark's talking about opening a West Coast office. Success tastes better when you've earned it twice. Leslie and I have been together for 8 months now. We discussed moving in together last month. She brought it up casually over dinner, testing the waters. "What do you think about me keeping some things here, more than just a toothbrush?" I was honest. Told her I wanted to be certain this time. That rushing into commitment after what happened with Angela felt wrong, felt like repeating old patterns. Expected her to get defensive, maybe pull away. Instead, she smiled. "I appreciate that you're honest about it. Most guys would just say yes and then resent me later." That's when I knew she was different. She respects boundaries, understands why I move cautiously now, doesn't push for promises I'm not ready to make. We're building something real, slowly. Honestly, that's worth waiting for. Clark still sends updates about Angela and Damien. Professional habit, he says. Keeping tabs on potential threats. I think he just likes seeing karma play out in real time. Damien's got 4 more years left on his 7-year sentence. Reports suggest he's counting every single day in misery. Protective custody became permanent after the 3rd incident. Turns out prisoners really don't like guys who pull guns on veterans. Can't say I'm surprised. Angela's still working at that dental office. Still living in the studio apartment. Still making her monthly payments. $217 last month. Her life is dramatically smaller than what she had during our marriage. No trips to Vegas. No designer clothes. No gym membership where she can meet the next Damien. Just work, rent, and debt payments. Do I feel guilty about that? Not even a little. Nobody forced Angela to have an affair. Nobody forced her to steal $64,000 from our accounts to fund trips with Damien. Nobody forced Damien to pull a loaded Glock in my bedroom. And nobody forced them to try manipulating the justice system with false accusations and fraudulent appeals. They chose every single step. Made deliberate decisions at every turn. Now they live with the natural consequences. That's not revenge. That's just cause and effect. I built something better from the ashes of that marriage. Successful business. Peaceful home in the hill country where I can see stars without light pollution. The possibility of a healthy relationship with someone who actually values honesty and respect. Most importantly, I've got my self-respect. When betrayed in the worst possible way, I didn't collapse. Didn't become a victim, didn't let them write the ending. I fought back, intelligently, systematically, within every legal boundary. And I won. Sometimes I think about that moment when Damien pulled the gun, the way his hands shook, the fear in his eyes pretending to be confidence. He thought he could intimidate me, thought waving a Glock would make me back down. Didn't know I'd disarmed dozens of actual enemy combatants, professionals with training and intent. Damien was a personal trainer with a gun he barely knew how to hold. That was his fundamental mistake, assuming I'd be easy to intimidate. Same as Angela's mistake. Assuming I'd never discover the affair. Assuming I wouldn't fight back against her planned theft. They both learned the same lesson. Raymond Jensen is not a man you threaten, not a man you betray, and definitely not a man who leaves a mission unfinished. Leslie joined me on the deck that evening. We sat in comfortable silence, watching stars appear one by one over the hill country. The air smelled like sage and cedar. "You seem different lately," she said, more settled. "Yeah, I am. Good different?" I thought about that, about everything I'd been through, everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. "Angela's betrayal freed me from a false marriage," I said slowly. "Gave me the opportunity to build something real." Leslie looked at me. "You're grateful for it." "I am. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened. Forces you to stop accepting less than you deserve." She smiled and took my hand. I smiled back, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Certainty. I won, not just in court. Not just financially, in every way that actually matters. I hope you found that story powerful. Leave a like on the video, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. I have handpicked 2 stories for you that are even more powerful. Have a great day. I watched my wife fuck another man in our bed. My name is Chase Carter, and I'm 36